My family disowned me at 18 to protect their golden child. Now they're begging for my help after he scammed them. The whole golden child, black sheep equation was basically what sums up my childhood, so you'll have to believe me when I say that I built myself. I legit built myself from scratch, and it is not a good feeling when your toxic family comes back knocking at the door, not when they kicked you out of a quite similar door. And that's not a metaphor, because I was disowned years ago. Kicked out of my own house the moment I turned 18, because why would anyone trust the black sheep, right? I have a lot of bitterness towards my family. And they're back in my life after 8 years, dumping their usual drama and hoping that I will help. It's frustrating. And I'm here to talk about that, Redditors. Growing up in a busy American household with 5 members, I faced the typical middle child struggles that shaped my early years. My parents often argued and considered separating, but somehow managed to stay together. My older brother was the favorite, shining brightly in our family's eyes. My sister, a quiet person who kept to herself, seemed to dislike everyone equally. And then there was me, the target of constant bullying, even within my own family. From a very young age, I had to endure teasing and insults about my appearance, weight, grades, behavior, and even my love for cooking, which some considered girly. It was tough because the people who should have supported me, my family, instead hurt me with their words. Their judgments and prejudices wounded me deeply and left lasting marks. At school, things didn't get any easier. Bullies always found something to make fun of, casting a dark cloud over my daily life. It was hard to find acceptance and be myself without being judged or put down. But I discovered a refuge in cooking. In the kitchen, I found a safe space where I could express my creativity without worrying about gender roles. It became my sanctuary, a place where I could escape the troubles that surrounded me. Although my family's relationships were strained, I still longed for their acceptance and support. Sadly, they seemed too preoccupied with their own problems to pay attention to me. It hurt to realize that I was often overlooked and ignored. In my messed up family, my brother was a pro at blaming others for his screw-ups. And my sister, though quiet, was no pushover. She had her moments of being rude and strong. But guess who was always the target? Yup, yours truly. And nobody even cared. It went on, the same old story, until one day things hit rock bottom. When I turned 18, my parents were always on my case about getting a stupid part-time job to help pay the bills. And they were too busy drooling over my brother's law school dreams. They didn't give a damn about me, like always. That's when we found out that my so-called golden child brother didn't pay his own damn fees, even though my parents handed him the money. And you know what? He had the guts to blame me, saying it was my responsibility. And my family? They didn't waste more than an hour to decide they wanted to disown me. It felt like a punch to the gut. The people who were supposed to love and protect me just tossed me aside like yesterday's trash, without even giving me a chance to explain. It crushed me, and I couldn't help but question my worth and where I fit in this messed up world. As reality sank in, a tidal wave of emotions flooded over me: anger, hurt, and deep sadness that felt like a gaping hole in my heart. The family ties I desperately held onto shattered into a million pieces, leaving me adrift and lost. But you know what? I didn't let their betrayal define me. With no one to rely on anymore, it was time for me to take control. Returning to the present, it became painfully clear that trusting my brother had turned into my family's biggest regret. That guy was nothing but a leech, sucking them dry. He didn't stop at just taking their money. He made my mom invest in some bogus insurance scheme, leaving her empty-handed. And if that wasn't enough, he even had the audacity to steal my sister's jewelry, including her engagement ring. Turns out, she got married without me even knowing. Then, without a trace, he disappeared with my dad's car. That car, the one they had eagerly bought, still had payments pending. It was a mess. Now my sister was caught up in a storm of trouble with her in-laws, and my mom, well, she sank into depression. And guess what? They were all broke, every single one of them. And that's where I come into the picture. They wanted me to step up and fulfill my so-called duty to the family by helping them financially. But that's just not happening. I suggested involving the police, but they're stubbornly clinging to their precious family name, wanting to keep it all hush-hush. They're hoping to handle it internally like that's going to solve anything. I told them to stop bothering me, but they were desperate and relentless. Honestly, it's infuriating. They expect me to come to their rescue after treating me like garbage for so long. They never cared about my feelings or well-being when I needed them, but now that they're in a mess, suddenly I'm supposed to be the hero. Well, sorry, but I won't be their savior. I've got my own life to live, my dreams to chase. They may be my family, but that doesn't mean they can walk all over me. They never took responsibility for their actions and never held themselves accountable. And now they're paying the price. It's tempting to just wash my hands of the whole situation, to leave them to deal with the consequences of their choices. But deep down, there's a flicker of compassion, a part of me that still cares for them. So instead of abandoning them completely, I'm thinking of giving this some time for me to come up with a decision. I don't know, will I be an a-hole if I just let them suffer? Because I kind of want to. Update 1, after much contemplation, I made up my mind I wouldn't help them financially. Yet, they persisted, their relentless pestering becoming unbearable. They crossed boundaries, invading my workplace and harassing my colleagues, desperately trying to involve them in our so-called private family matter. The constant barrage of text messages and phone calls left me feeling suffocated. It was time to put an end to their issues once and for all. So I decided exactly what I was going to do. I'll sit them down and make them face the harsh reality. They need to learn from their mistakes and take control of their own lives. They can't rely on me to fix everything for them. It's time for them to grow up, to learn the hard way if that's what it takes. I won't bail them out financially, but I will be there to support them emotionally. They need to understand that true strength comes from within, from facing challenges head on and taking responsibility for their actions. Update 2, with a heavy heart, I decided to involve the police. I hoped they could bring some semblance of order to this chaotic situation. And indeed, they located my brother, much to everyone's mixed feelings of hope and disappointment. As the officers presented my brother, there was no trace of guilt in his eyes. He seemed disconnected, lost in his world. It became evident that he was high, under the influence of substances that clouded his judgment and ability to comprehend the consequences of his actions. It was heartbreaking to witness the extent to which addiction had taken hold of him. But what was even more heartbreaking was my family's reaction. There was worry and pity and sympathy, and it reminded me of all the times when I expected to see that for me. But let's not go into that. It's clear how my family feels about me versus my brother. The officers took him into custody, but it was clear that this alone wouldn't solve the deeper issues plaguing my family. They discovered the car and the jewelry which, by God's grace, was still with him. Addiction was a monster that had ravaged not only my brother's life but also our entire family's well-being. I have decided to help them financially till they are on their feet. But I didn't share this with them. I told them that I might give them money occasionally as they're my parents. But they shouldn't expect anything from me. They didn't when they kicked me out, so there's no point now. Update 3, hi everyone. It's been a month since it all happened, and in the aftermath of the police involvement, the truth stared us in the face. We couldn't ignore the reality any longer. Our family was broken, torn apart by the weight of our struggles. The wounds ran deep, leaving scars that would take time to heal if they ever would. While I couldn't change the past or undo the pain caused, I vowed to support my family differently. It was clear that financial assistance alone wouldn't mend our shattered bonds. We needed healing, understanding, and a commitment to confront the underlying issues that had led us to this point. Instead of being consumed by anger and bitterness, I chose empathy and compassion. Addiction had its grip on my brother, and it was a battle he couldn't fight alone. But I don't want to be directly involved. I just don't think it's safe for my mental health to trust and rely on these people ever again. Talking to them, responding, and even helping financially sometimes is one thing, but a permanent entry into my life is not what I need right now. I understand that he has been through a lot of things, but I have to prioritize my mental health. And if that makes me look like the bad guy, so be it. My wife and I had a difficult relationship, filled with constant ups and downs. Eventually, we reached a point where we realized that our marriage wasn't working anymore. It was a tough decision, but we both agreed that it was best to part ways. During this difficult time, I was going through financial hardships, struggling to make ends meet. Unfortunately, this led to a heartbreaking turn of events involving my daughter. Feeling hurt and angry, my daughter made a shocking choice to disown me as her father. She believed that my wife's boss, who I suspected was involved romantically with my wife, was her real father. Despite my wife and her boss denying any such relationship, my daughter firmly believed otherwise. To make matters worse, my daughter saw the boss as a better father figure, someone who could provide her with all the things she desired. She was drawn to the lavish gifts he gave her and the expensive shopping trips they took together. In her eyes, he seemed more deserving of being her true dad, leaving me feeling abandoned and alone. Soon my ex-wife got married to him, making their father-daughter relationship more official. He was now her stepdad. The rejection from my child was a devastating blow. It made me question my worth as a father and left me overwhelmed with sadness. I couldn't help but wonder if there was something I could have done differently to prevent this painful outcome. The weight of my daughter's choice and her belief in her newfound father figure pierced through my heart, leaving me shattered and struggling to find my place in her life. It was an agonizing experience, watching her turn away from me and embrace someone else as her dad. As I grappled with my emotions, I knew I had to confront the reality of the situation. I did everything I could to fix the broken bond with my daughter, but it seemed like an endless battle. I made countless attempts to reach out and reconnect, hoping she would see the value of our relationship. However, she remained indifferent and focused solely on materialistic things, caring little about our connection. I tried to have heart-to-heart conversations with her, expressing my love and desire to mend our relationship. I poured my heart out, sharing my deepest feelings and hoping she would respond with understanding and compassion. But instead, she brushed off my attempts, showing no interest in reconciling. I also made efforts to spend quality time with her, hoping that shared experiences would rekindle the love we once had. I took her to her favorite places, planned special outings, and even surprised her with gifts that I knew she would appreciate. Yet, no matter what I did, it seemed like she was more interested in the expensive gifts and outings rather than the genuine connection between us. I tried to involve her in family activities, inviting her to gatherings and celebrations, hoping she would see the importance of family bonds. But she would often decline the invitations, prioritizing her desires and social life over spending time with her own father. I sought the help of family therapy and counseling, believing that a neutral third party could facilitate communication and understanding. I hoped that through therapy, we could address the underlying issues and find common ground. Unfortunately, she showed little enthusiasm for the sessions, making it difficult to make any progress. Despite my continuous efforts, it became clear that she had become self-centered and driven by external validation. Money and material possessions seemed to take precedence over genuine love and connection. It was disheartening to witness her lack of empathy and disregard for our relationship. I couldn't help but feel the weight of disappointment and sadness. I yearned for the love and affection that I once received from my daughter, but it seemed like an unattainable dream. I had to come to terms with the painful reality that I couldn't force her to change or prioritize our bond. In the face of her indifference, I had to find strength within myself. I sought support from friends and family who understood the challenges I faced. I focused on my well-being, engaging in activities that brought me joy and pursuing my passions. Though I held on to a glimmer of hope that someday she might realize the importance of our relationship, I knew that I couldn't let her neglect to define my self-worth. I had to accept the reality and find happiness and fulfillment in other aspects of my life, even if it meant letting go of the hope for a renewed connection with my daughter. After enduring years of disappointment and nearly giving up, I found solace in building a new family with people who truly loved and cherished me. 5 long years had passed, and I had started to heal from the wounds inflicted by my daughter's neglect. However, the marks she left behind still lingered, reminding me of the pain I had endured. Suddenly, out of the blue, I received a message from my daughter. She reached out to invite me to her upcoming wedding. A wave of mixed emotions washed over me as I read her words. Part of me was thrilled at the prospect of reconnecting with her, while another part was cautious, aware of the past hurt. As I delved deeper into her message, my initial happiness began to fade. I soon realized that her motive for contacting me wasn't driven by a genuine desire for reconciliation or to rebuild our relationship.